Retraining the Snow cards. Crystal Girl is now Crystal Girl Shard of Frozen Grace and has the following effects. If this card is summoned, you can place one ice counter on a face-up monster your opponent controls. Then you can add one level 5 or higher water monster from your deck to your hand during the end phase. If this card is in your graveyard and you control a level 5 or higher water monster, you can special summon this card, but banish it when it leaves the field. If special summoned this way, place one ice counter on a face-up monster your opponent controls. You can only use each effect of Crystal Girl Shard of Frozen Grace once per turn. Ice Doll is now Ice Doll Pale Puppeteer. It is now level 3, has 1000 attack, 500 defense, and the following effects. You can discard one other water monster. Special summon this card from your hand. If this card is summoned, you can add one water spellcaster monster from your deck to your hand, then place one ice counter on a face-up monster your opponent controls. If this card is sent from the fields to the graveyard, you can add one Ice Doll Mirror Shard Reflection from your deck or graveyard to your hand. You can only use each effect of Ice Doll Pale Puppeteer once per turn. You cannot special summon monsters the turn you activate any of this card's effects, except water monsters. Snowman Creator is now Snowman Creator Counter Architect and has the following effects. If this card is summoned, you can place ice counters on face-up monsters your opponent controls equal to the number of water monsters you control, minimum 1. If you placed 3 or more ice counters by this effect, you can destroy one card your opponent controls, and if you do, add one spell or trap from your deck to your hand that mentions ice counter in its text. You can banish this card from your graveyard. Special summon one Snowman Eater Frostbite Lurker from your deck in face-down defense position. You can only use each effect of Snowman Creator Counter Architect once per turn. Snowman Eater is now Snowman Eater Frostbite Lurker and has the following effects. If this card is flipped face up, targets one face-up monster on the field. Destroy it. If this card is sent from the fields to the graveyard, you can place one ice counter on one face-up monster on the field. You can only use this effect of Snowman Eater Frostbite Lurker once per turn. Cold Enchanter is now Cold Enchanter Frost Hexer. It now has 1800 attack and the following effects. If this card is summoned, you can place one ice counter on up to 2 face-up monsters your opponent controls. Once per turn, quick effect, you can discard one card. Place one ice counter on all face-up monsters your opponent controls without an ice counter. While your opponent controls a monster with an ice counter, this card cannot be destroyed by battle or card effects. Gains 300 attack for each monster your opponent controls with an ice counter. Snow Dragon is now Snow Dragon Crystalline Blight. It now has 1700 attack and the following effects. If this card is destroyed by battle or card effects, you can place one ice counter on all face-up monsters your opponent controls. Then you can special summon one level 4 or lower water monster from your deck, except Snow Dragon Crystalline Blight. While this card is face-up on the field, each time a monster your opponent controls is targeted by a card effect, except during the damage step, place one ice counter on that monster. Blizzard Princess is now Blizzard Princess Queen of Frozen Silence and has the following effects. You can tribute summon this card in face-up attack position by tributing one water spellcaster monster. After this card was normal summoned, your opponent cannot activate spell or trap cards for the rest of that turn. When this card declares an attack, you can place one ice counter on each face-up monster your opponent controls. Monsters with ice counters cannot activate their effects during the battle phase. Ice Master is now Ice Master Queen of the Frozen Seal. It now has 2700 attack, 2400 defense, and the following effects. You can special summon this card from your hand or graveyard by banishing 2 water monsters from your graveyard, including at least one monster that mentions ice counter in its text. Once per turn, you can place one ice counter on each face-up monster your opponent controls. You can tribute this card, destroy all monsters with an ice counter or counters, and if you do, draw one card. Then you can special summon one level 4 or lower monster from your deck or graveyard that mentions ice counter in its text. Ice Queen is now Ice Queen Sovereign of the Frozen Seal and has the following effects. If you control a level 5 or higher water monster, you can special summon this card from your hand. You can only special summon Ice Queen Sovereign of the Frozen Seal once per turn this way. Once per turn, if a monster or monsters with an ice counter is destroyed by battle or card effect, you can target one spell in your graveyard, add that target to your hand. If this card you control would be destroyed, you can remove 2 ice counters from anywhere on the field instead. Snowdust Dragon is now Snowdust Dragon Eternal Whiteout. It now has 2200 defense and the following effects. You can special summon this card from your hand or graveyard by removing 4 ice counters from anywhere on the field. If this card is special summoned, place 1 ice counter on each face-up monster your opponent controls. Monsters with ice counters cannot attack or change their battle positions. Also, their effects are negated. Once per turn quick effect, you can remove 3 ice counters from anywhere on the field. Destroy 1 card your opponent controls. Snowdust Giant is now Snowdust Colossus Glacial Executioner. It now has 2400 attack, 1000 defense, and the following effects. Once per turn, you can detach 1 material from this card. Place 1 ice counter on each face-up monster your opponent controls. Monsters with ice counters cannot activate their effects while they are face-up on the field. If a monster or monsters with an ice counter is destroyed, you can target 1 card on the field, destroy it. You can only use this effect of Snowdust Colossus Glacial Executioner once per turn. Icedall Mirror is now Icedall Mirror Shard Reflection and has the following effects. Send 1 water monster from your hand or face-up field to the graveyard. Special summon 1 water monster from your deck with the same name as a monster you control or in your graveyard. Then you can place 1 ice counter on each face-up monster your opponent controls. Also, you cannot special summon monsters for the rest of this turn after this card resolves, except water monsters. You can banish this card from your graveyard. Add 1 monster that mentions ice counter in its text from your deck or graveyards to your hand. You can only use each effect of Icedall Mirror Shard Reflection once per turn. Twin Pillars of Ice is now Twin Pillars of Ice Frozen Awakening and has the following effects. Special summon 2 Ice Pillar tokens, level 4 Water Aquas with 1900 attack and 1200 defense, in defense position. Then place 1 ice counter on each face-up monster your opponent controls. Also, for the rest of this turn after this card resolves, you cannot special summon monsters from the extra deck except water monsters. You can banish this card from your graveyard. Immediately after this effect resolves, you can normal summon 1 water monster, and if you do, you can place 1 ice counter on a monster your opponent controls. You can only use each effect of Twin Pillars of Ice Frozen Awakening once per turn. Snowman effect is now Snowman Surge effect and has the following effects. Target 1 water monster you control. It gains 800 attack for each other water monster you control until the end phase. Then, if you control Snowman Eater Frostbite Lurker or Snowman Creator Counter Architect, you can place 1 ice counter on each face-up monster your opponent controls. Monsters with ice counters cannot activate their effects during the battle phase this turn. You can only activate 1 Snowman Surge effect per turn. Ice Barrier is now Ice Counter Barrier and has the following effects. When an opponent's monster declares an attack, negate the attack, negate the monster's effects, then place 1 ice counter on it. You can banish this card from your graveyard, send 1 level 5 or higher water monster from your deck to the graveyard. Then, you can add 1 monster from your graveyards to your hand that mentions Ice Counter in its text. You can only use this effect of Ice Counter Barrier once per turn. The Icebound God is now the Icebound Deity. It is now a continuous trap and has the following effects. If you control 2 or more water monsters, you can target 1 face-up monster your opponent controls. Place 2 ice counters on it. While that monster has an ice counter, it cannot attack, also its effects are negated. You can only use this effect of the Icebound Deity once per turn. If a level 5 or higher water monster is summoned to your field while this card is in your graveyard, except during the damage step, you can set this card, but banish it when it leaves the field. Monsters with ice counters lose 200 attack for each ice counter on the field. Ice Barrier has also been retrained into Frostbind of the Ice Barrier and has the following effects. When your opponent declares an attack or activates a monster effect on the field while you control an Ice Barrier monster, negate that effect or attack, and if you do, change that opponent's monster's attack to 0, negate its effects, also it cannot change its battle position or activate its effects while face up on the field. If you control a level 5 or higher Ice Barrier monster, you can activate this card from your hand. You can only activate 1 Frostbind of the Ice Barrier per turn.